Hey, what's up, you guys? It's Bloody Jacob here to bring you another movie review. This time we're going to be talking about the independent crime drama film from IFC Films, Cold in July. And, I just checked out this movie last night after my graduation ceremony, which you can see my quick little vlog on in my last video. And, I just watched this movie with my dad afterwards last night as a little mini celebration, I guess. And I was curious about this movie for a while, mainly because of, who it stars, of course, obviously being Michael C. Hall, who is, Dexter Morgan himself. So automatically that, draws me to the movie and to see him act in another role again and stuff like that. And yeah, it is a very, very good movie. I actually liked it a lot. And, when I was first hearing about it, when I was first watching a trailer for it and stuff like that, my expectations were at a fairly decent level, and I sorry that I keep on itching my nose and stuff like that, but my expectations were at a fairly decent level. They were probably at a point of being, I think it's gonna be fairly solid. That's what I thought, but when I actually watched the movie last night. My expectations were at fairly solid, and what I got was very good, which I considered to be just about even with that, or possibly a little bit above what my expectations originally were. So it didn't completely blow me away or anything, but it definitely had more involved with it all than I expected it to. And, rather than me trying to sum up the basis of the story off the top of my head, I'm going to read you a description I found on familyvideo.com. And, I'll just read this to you out loud real quick. Of course, before I get to that, though, I did want to touch on the cast of the movie real quick. Of course, Michael C. Hall playing the main character, Richard Dane. Also stars, Sam Shepard, who's a very accomplished actor, as Ben Russell, Don Johnson as well as Jim Bob Luke. And, I'll get to the director and writer. The director and writer was Jim Mickle, who also directed and had a hand in writing Stakeland, which I reviewed not too long ago. And Nick Damici also had a role in this film, who played Mr. in Stakeland, and he also helped in writing this film with Mickle. So I thought that was really cool to see them working together again on two films I like quite a lot. It's pretty cool. And I looked into their information together a little bit more. They have worked on quite a lot of projects together, from the few films that Mickle has done. A lot of the times Damici is right there with them. So I think that's pretty interesting. But yeah, let's read you this description real quick. How can a split-second decision change your life? While investigating noises in his house one balmy Texas night in 1989, Richard Dane puts a bullet in the brain of a low-life burglar, Freddie Russell. Although he's hailed as a small-town hero, Dane soon finds himself fearing for his family's safety when Freddie's ex-con father, Ben, rolls into town, hell-bent on revenge. However, not all is as it seems. Shortly after Dane kills the home intruder, his life begins to unravel into a dark underworld of corruption and violence. Twists and turns continue to pile up as the film reaches its inevitable destination, a gore-soaked dead end. Michael C. Hall brings a shell-shocked vulnerability to his portrayal of Dane that contrasts perfectly with the grizzled badasses portrayed by Sam Shepard and Don Johnson. Directed with an excellent eye for visual poetry of noir, this pulpy, southern fried mystery is a throwback to an older breed of action films, one where every punch and shotgun blast opens up both physical and spiritual wounds. Cold in July is hard to shake as an East Texas summer. I actually thought that was a pretty good description. A little bit better than, your typical description on the back of DVDs and stuff like that. So I decided to read that too, so you can get a better understanding of the story in general, without me having to explain it in my more, rambling type of ways and stuff like that. But of course, you get right away from the trailer that, he shoots an intruder, who's trying to rob his house. Richard Dane, Michael C. Hall's character does. And we, at first, there's going to be some spoilers in this video. I'm not going to go quite as into detail as I do with my 30, 40-minute plus movie reviews I do on occasion. I'm going to try to be a little bit more brief with it. But, of course, spoilers starting now, so if you don't want to hear any spoilers, just click off of this video now if you're actually watching this far into it. But, yeah, it turns out that, we do see at first, like, Ben, Sam Shepard's character, is sort of, like, stalking Richard or, Dane's family. And, it's pretty creepy the way they do it. It's really intense. And that's something I really liked about Jim Mickle's filming style, or his directing style, I should say. Because after seeing Stakeland, it was good to find out that he was behind this movie as well. And he's really starting to become one of my favorite directors, actually. Because he really knows how to create, like, sort of a great, intense and gloomy atmosphere. I really like a lot, and I kind of want to see a couple of his older horror films I want to look into at some point. And he really knows how to create that sort of atmosphere and that feeling that you get just from like a slow but yet thrilling scene, you know what I mean? And Sam Shepard does a good job portraying his anger over who he thinks is his son that was killed. But that's one of the bigger twists in it, is that it turns out that Dane, Michael C. Hall's character, never actually killed his son. It was a completely different person. That's one of the things that did bug me a little bit about the film, was that we never actually really found out for sure who Richard Dane, Michael C. Hall, actually shot. But, it really could have been anyone, so I guess it didn't matter, like, a great deal in the long run in the story that they showed in the movie. But still, it seems like a pretty good piece of information to know. And it could have played more into the story, who knows. But nonetheless, of course, once Sam Shepard's character finds that out, things sort of change. And Nick Damici's character in the movie is the sheriff, Mr. Ray Price. And we think he's this good sheriff who's actually trying to help, trying to help all this small town. Because, it's like a small town, in a movie where, like, kind of everybody knows everybody type of thing. And at first we think Nick Damici's character is completely trustworthy and, like, real and honest and stuff like that. But then we sort of see that he is actually corrupt, and he starts giving you these weird vibes and stuff like that. As, Dane starts to wonder, as he starts to ask too many questions, pretty much. And, sorry about that. I have Facebook open. That's what happens. And if you guys want to go on my Facebook account, which there's a link to on my channel page, you can see some pictures from my graduation last night. But anyway, so he starts giving these weird vibes, and he's corrupt, and we see him and a couple other officers actually, they find Sam Shepard's character, and they basically beat him down. And they leave him on the middle of a train track, basically to die. They probably should have just put a bullet in his head, or make sure he's a little bit more wounded, I guess. And Dane ends up, seeing the whole thing occur, and he actually saves Ben's life, Sam Shepard's character. And so that was a pretty interesting turn of events I didn't really expect in the movie. I first seen the previews for it, I thought it was going to be a little bit more straightforward. I thought it was going to be more of a more basic thriller type of movie where we would have just seen, like, the stalking of Sam Shepard's character against Michael C. Hall's character's family. But really it turned a lot more complex and a lot more layered than I ever expected it to. And so that scene right there just bumped it up a whole nother notch for me. And we find out that Ben, Sam Shepard's character, I know I keep on saying the actors and stuff like that, but we find out that Sam Shepard's character's son is actually still alive, like we thought, and he is actually still around and about. He's just sort of like either protected by the cops or has some sort of way to sort of like avoid really getting into any trouble. And, it's part of this thing that's all turns out to be sort of connected in certain ways and stuff like that. And I did also want to mention the actress who plays Michael C. Hall's wife in the movie, Vinessa Shaw, or Vinessa Shaw. I've seen her in a couple other films over the years. I remember seeing her in 3:10 to Yuma. The remake with Russell Crowe and Christian Bale. And, she was also on Ray Donovan, even though I don't watch that, I know the show and stuff like that. But anyway, she was pretty decent in the movie as well. She had some good scenes with Michael C. Hall. And there's a particular good scene with Michael C. Hall and her when they were in this little restaurant with their son eating, and he's just growing more and more paranoid, more and more irritable about everything, and she just sort of stands up and walks out on him. But see, we as an audience know why he's acting like that. We're acting like we're thinking yeah, we know it's completely justifiable why he's acting like that. So stop giving him shit. But her character doesn't really have all the info here, so you gotta give her a little bit of slack, I guess, and kind of gotta see it from her perspective. And so those side of things are pretty good too. And as then we see sort of this trio form between Michael C. Hall, Sam Shepard, and Don Johnson's character, who is brought in a little bit more later into the movie. And we find out that Sam Shepard and Don Johnson's characters have a history together. They both fought in the Korean War together. And it turns out that Ben actually saved... hold on a second. Apologize about this. I know I've been doing this more often lately. It turns out Ben, Sam Shepard saved Don Johnson's, Jim Bob Luke's character. And the war that they're in together. And so we find out more about this more honorable, sort of respectful side of Sam Shepard's character. And then there's another scene earlier in the movie where they had the cops planted outside Dane's house, and Sam Shepard got in there anyway, and we see him. He's in the room alone with Dane's son, and then he easily could have taken him or done something to him. But, he just kind of leaves him alone after, sort of just, nudging him a little bit, on the cheek and stuff like that. And so, right there, you kind of knew there was a little bit more to him than, what the movie originally tried to present. So that was a very, tide-turning scene as well. And there's just a hell of a lot to talk about with this movie. But as they look more and more into Ben's son, we see the trio sort of form this great chemistry between each other. That was probably my favorite thing about this whole movie, really, was, like I said, the chemistry between Michael C. Hall, Sam Shepard, and Don Johnson's characters. Just the way they would banter back and forth and sort of just play off of each other, I thought was really, really fun and really, really enjoyable, and they really made you believe the whole scenario and situation they were all in. So that was probably my favorite thing about it. And of course, if that didn't work, the whole movie would have been a little bit worse. But no, it worked, and it turned out to be a very, very good film. But as I look more into Ben's son, we find out that he's not really redeemable whatsoever. Because we find these tapes he has when they're trying to look at where he's living and stuff. They even run into this big Mexican guy that Ben's son has been running with. And, there's a pretty funny yet intense fight scene. Ben decides to take on the big Mexican guy with a shovel and stuff like that, but, then Don Johnson tries to fight him too, but the Mexican guy just takes him down pretty quickly. And as Ben's about to have a standoff with him, Don Johnson comes back and kicks him in the balls from behind and just knocks him out, which I thought was pretty funny. And then we find these tapes of, Ben's son, and they're basically snuff films, and what Ben's son and whoever he's working with would do is find girls who are pretty much assumed to be underage, and they take them into a room, they have sex with them, and then they basically torture them before they basically beat them to death. And in the particular film we seen in the movie, they used a baseball bat and just bashed her in the head afterwards. It's completely disgusting, completely horrid and inexcusable. And so after that, Ben decided that he'd have to kill his son himself. He compared it to having a dog. They would need to put out of his misery. Would he rather chain him up, or would he rather set him free? What's more humane? And so it's a pretty good thing to think about, psychologically and stuff like that. And yeah, this is when I really began to like Sam Shepard's character as well. And Don Johnson and Michael C. Hall's character, Dane and Jim Bob, kind of way outside the house after Ben sees the movie, because we see him, how he angrily reacts to all of it. And Sam Shepard's character is probably one of, if not the best thing about the movie. Because if it wasn't for Michael C. Hall playing the main character, Richard Dane, my favorite character probably would have been Sam Shepard's character, because he was just definitely the most layered and the most complex in the movie, I thought. But of course, Michael C. Hall playing Richard Dane, and Dexter himself, I can have to go with him. But I thought Sam Shepard's character is really, really great as well, and Don Johnson played a good role too. And they all, like I said, they all really connected well and really made the movie. And so they eventually start tracking down Ben's son. They try and figure out how his business runs and stuff like that. Like they send Dane into this video store he uses as a cover for what they really do. And he's saying, "Oh, there are any foreign films you have in here?" when he meets Ben's son directly and stuff like that, it's awkwardly funny. And yeah, this is just a fantastic movie, man. I was not disappointed with it. If anything, it met or even exceeded my expectations a little. And the ending to the movie, I should talk about that. It was very, 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 or at least fairly satisfying, I'd say. Definitely kind of answers your questions for the most part, minus a couple things here and there that I touched on earlier. But as far as like the general thing you wanted to happen, it happened, and you got your expected ending. Although it wasn't without its costs, and it did have a twist on it or two as well. Because we basically have Dane, Ben, and Jim Bob, sort of going on this final assault, at Ben's son's main base of operations and stuff like that. After they see him bringing another girl to probably make another film. And we get some great shootout scenes in the building here. Of course, it was pretty interesting to see Michael C. Hall's character sort of change just a little bit as the movie went on. You see him how scared and sort of panicked he was in the movie, and yet he still has that towards the end. But at the same time, we see something click within him that sort of makes him more focused and more geared towards taking care of this business that he's so disgusted with and that he wants to, make up for. And I think his character sort of feels like he owes Ben something too, for their very huge misunderstanding earlier in the movie. And so we get some great shootouts. We see Dane fight this bigger guy one-on-one. Dane is actually shot in the ear a little bit, but he manages to kill his attacker. And he has a shootout with another guy, but Ben manages to shoot the guy before he's able to, get too close to Dane. And Don Johnson is taking care of guys left and right, even though we don't really see him too much during that whole initial shootout scene. But you can kind of assume that's what he was up to. And then we see that bigger Mexican guy show up again. This time he gets the advantage over Don Johnson. I kind of thought Johnson's character was going to die here, but once again, he manages to, just take out his gun and shoot him. And, of course, move out of the way of the guy before he falls down the stairs. And then, of course, we get what we were kind of waiting for once we found out about the details in the movie. The confrontation between Ben and his son. His son they find in the final room, hiding behind this chair. And, Dane, Jim Bob, and Ben are all, circling them and have their guns drawn and stuff like that. But, Jim Bob and Dane, they just kind of want to leave it to Ben to sort of be the one to do it, as Ben wanted to earlier, as he, very clearly proclaimed. And Ben's son just ends up coming out and he shoots Jim Bob down, and then he also is able to hit Dane in the arm or shoulder area, and maybe in the abdomen too, a little bit. And then, Ben and his son sort of shoot each other. Ben is actually shot first, but then he's able to come up before his son's able to, finally kill him. And Ben comes back and, is able to blast his son with a shotgun, which I thought was pretty cool. That's what we wanted. We wanted Ben to be the one to kill his own son, even though it's kind of tragic. And as Ben said earlier, he hadn't actually seen his son since he was 8. And now he's like a full-grown man. He's like 20s, 30s, that type of thing. And so before Ben's son dies, Ben tells him that he's his father. And then, he puts him down and shoots him in the head. And that's a very satisfying ending too, but unfortunately Ben is bled. He's pretty much bled to death, and he kind of he dies just after he's able to kill his son. And that was sad, but yeah, sort of poetic to what the goal of the movie was for the characters. So I was fine with that. And surprisingly enough, Jim Bob actually survived. Don Johnson's character, which I thought he was actually dead, but apparently not. So that's good too. And Don Johnson's character is able to rescue the prostitute, or not the prostitute, but the girl they had that they were gonna torture and kill there. And Dane's able to get out as well, Michael C. Hall. And then they burn the place to the ground, to kind of conserve any evidence of what happened there in complete detail. And then we see a little bit of a flash forward. We see that the girl is still staying with Jim Bob. And, as he's recovering, and Dane and him still have, a respect for each other, like we've seen earlier in the movie. And, then we see Dane go back home and, lay in his bed with his wife and his son. And that's pretty much where the movie ends. And so, like I said, a fairly satisfying ending. What we wanted to happen happened with Ben's character, Sam Shepard's Ben character, and his son. It was kind of expected what would happen at the end. But still really well done, I thought. And also, I did kind of wish there would have been more with Nick Damici's corrupt sheriff character at the end. I sort of was hoping he'd be waiting in Dane's house for him, and then they sort of have a direct confrontation. Maybe where Dane actually would kill him right at the end or something, I don't know. But, so I kind of leave that a little bit loose at the end. I kind of think there would be more on that a little bit later. But, oh well, it's still a really good ending, nonetheless, I thought. And so, that's all I really have to say about this movie. Overall, a very, very good film. One I actually want to buy on DVD or Blu-ray at some point. If I do, I'll definitely make a quick video on it and post photos on Facebook and Twitter and stuff. So, it's one I definitely plan on buying. It was definitely worth to watch. If you're a fan of Michael C. Hall, definitely check it out. If you're a fan of Sam Shepard or Don Johnson, check it out too. Or if you just want to see a good crime drama thriller type of movie, definitely watch it. And a lot of these independent movies turn out to be better than the ones in theaters and stuff like that. IFC Films puts out a lot of good stuff. So I think it also won a couple awards at the Sundance Film Festival and things like that too. So that's really good. It definitely deserves it. So a very good movie. Enjoyed it. Plan on buying it at some point soon. And I'll catch you guys next time. And peace.